Hello and welcome everyone to today's Fairy God Boss Live webinar. We're excited to have you all join us today. We're going to give a few folks a couple minutes to get logged in. But while we're waiting, we'd love to know where everyone's tuning in from today. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screen that there's a little chat box. So if you feel comfortable doing so, please send us a message, chat and say hey and where you're tuning in from. Looks like we've got people from all over. Sunny Arizona, Minneapolis, Chicago, Tulsa, Southern California. Great to see. Hope you're staying dry out there. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Luis Horn. I'm an account manager here at Fairy God Boss. Before we get started, got a few quick announcements. First, the session will be recorded and shared via email to all registrants. Next, during the discussion, we'd love for it to be as interactive as possible. So love to hear from you. We hope you use the stage chat on the right-hand side of your screen to send messages, comments, and any questions you have for the panelists. For those that are unaware, here at Fairy God Boss, we are the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairy God Boss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this one today. We're thrilled to be joined by 4 leaders today, so please join me in welcoming Cargill. We've got Cheryl M. Wallace, April Hope Warham, and Sakshia Som. And now I'm excited to hand off to today's moderator, Monica Jackson, who will lead us in a conversation about building a purpose-driven career.
Thank you, Louis. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session, conversation with Cargill on building a purpose-driven career. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Monica Jackson, and I lead diversity, equity, inclusion for Cargill. I've been with Cargill about 5 months now, and I'm really excited to be here with my colleagues and be in space and conversation with you all today you can hear a little bit more about Cargill's culture, our people, and their experiences. But first, allow me to share a little bit about Cargill. We are a private family-owned company. We are committed to nourishing the world in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. We have over 160,000 employees in 70 countries, and we specialize in food, agriculture, nutrition, and risk management. More specifically, my colleagues here today really are at the heart of Cargill's vast operations, and that's our Cargill Agricultural Supply Chain North America organization. And what they do is they connect farmers and growers to food, to feed, and to industrial customers through a seamless supply chain. And you'll hear more about that. But what I will share is that the asset footprint for this organization includes more than 200 grain elevators, export-import facilities, oilseed crush plants, biodiesel facilities, farm service centers, and a global cotton business. So that's a lot there, right? So when you hear from these 3 inspiring leaders today from this CAST North America team, you will hear how they've navigated their careers, how they integrated their passions, and really share that it's possible to have a purpose-driven career at a global multinational company such as Cargill. So with that, I also just want to quickly share some recent news for Cargill, being named among Forbes America's Best Employers for Women for the 2nd consecutive year. So we are really excited to share that recognition as well. So what I'll do as a next step is to ask our panelists to please take a minute to introduce themselves. So for each of you, we'd love to hear how long you've been at Cargill, a little bit about your career journey, your current role, and a fun fact of your choice. Is that okay? And if so, we'll start with Sakshia.
Okay, thank you, Monica, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Sakshia Som. I currently work as an operations supervisor in our oilseeds crush facility. So we take the soybeans and process it into oils. I work at the plant here in Gainesville, Georgia. I've been with Cargill for about 5 years now. And a little fun fact about myself, I took a trip to Europe this summer. So that was a really fun trip with my sister.
All right, Cheryl, next.
Great. Thank you. And so, Monica, I want to too just thank the Fairy God Boss community. And so, as we've learned about their passion, how they're inspiring, providing development, I'm just so grateful that Cargill's become connected into this community as well. So, really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So, as Monica said, I'm Cheryl Wallace, and I lead our U.S. origination and grain business. I have been with Cargill for 27 years, which still blows me away that it's been that long. But I just had an incredible journey. And when I think about my time at Cargill, I really view it as 5 distinct careers. It just so happens that it's all under the umbrella of Cargill. As Monica said, we're in different industries, geographies, and so that has provided just a lot of incredible opportunities to move around and to experience different parts of Cargill and to serve customers in different ways. And so with that, been able to have time. So Shia talked about her business of oilseed processing. I've had part of my career there, edible oils, flour milling, energy, financial services, our corporate risk management. So again, just an opportunity to see how one can have a very fulfilling career, purpose-driven career. It just so happens I didn't have to change 401ks or swap companies to be able to do so. Let's see, I think the other question was a fun fact. Before I came to Cargill, I spent a month in the Boundary Waters. And if you're not familiar with the Boundary Waters, this is a remote part. It's northern Minnesota, it straddles Canada. And when I say remote, I mean remote. No electricity, no cell phone coverage, none of life's conveniences. It is literally about canoeing and camping every day, rarely seeing anyone else. So while it's been a number of years since I've done such a deep dive into the Boundary Waters, my family and I, we try and get up there every year. It's a way for us to unplug, get away from the city, and have some family time together in the outdoors. So that's just a little bit about me and my time at Cargill.
Cool. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Sakshia. So I will try and follow that up. First of all, also, yes, thank you so much, Fairy God Boss, for having us. I think this is a really cool partnership, and I'm really excited to come on and talk about agriculture with everybody for an hour. So my name is April Hope Wareham. I go by April Hope or AH. And I have been with Cargill since 2014. So I'm coming up on a decade here. I have been in the grain business with Cargill in the US in operations for my whole career, but have moved all over the place. I started with an internship in Pipestone, Minnesota. I did my traineeship in Seneca, Illinois on the Illinois River. I had the opportunity to manage our Shullsburg, Wisconsin facility for a while. I went down to Westwego, Louisiana, where Sakshia also worked for a while, but we did not cross paths actually in operations there. And I also worked at a joint venture that Cargill has called Temco for a few years as well, and took some time in Tampa, Florida. So I have got the opportunity to be all over the place with Cargill, but always in grain operations. A couple years ago, I took on the role of a continuous improvement specialist. So I work with interior grain elevators, 34 of them along the Mississippi River and east, on figuring out ways to more efficiently work, essentially. So I'm also very involved in the industry. I'm one of the original members of WIMOS, Women in Maritime Operations, which was established in 2017, back when I was living down in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I'm on the national board for that organization, something I'm really, really proud of. So I have a lot of passion in not only women in agriculture and in the agriculture industry, but in transportation and maritime as well. My fun fact is that I am also a very outdoorsy person. I love any opportunity to be outdoors, and I just thinking of one. I've lived obviously all over the country. I'm a long distance runner, and I will run anywhere in temperatures from a minus 28 wind chill Fahrenheit, which is minus 33 Celsius for my Canadian friends. I know we've got a few who have joined in. And I do not know my top level yet. I trained for a 50K in late summer in Tampa and was doing long runs of close to 30 miles in like 110 and was still good. So I'm very much a fan of like saying, hey, it's not about the weather, it's about the clothing and getting outdoors. I love it, and it's a huge part of my day in my life. So.
Woo, that's great. Okay, you three. So I think the audience can tell that we are in for a treat. You can hear the varied experiences that they have, personally, professionally. So just to give you a sense of, the leaders we have here at Cargill, and really balancing and taking time, for their personal interests, traveling, running in, whatever degree weather and all of that good stuff. And so absolutely love it. So thank you all for sharing, and it's great to hear. Okay, so how about this? For those who are joining on the line now, just know we will be taking questions. So don't forget to put your questions in the chat, as was shared earlier, because we're looking forward to that as well. So I'm just going to dive in, and we're going to talk about this notion of purpose, and we talk of purpose-driven care. Cheryl, I want to start with you and just set the stage for us. When you think about the meaning or the definition of purpose, what comes to mind? Help us just, kind of, baseline us for that definition.
Thanks, Monica. I was really excited when we talked about this topic of purpose-driven careers. It matters. Work matters. If we think about how much time we spend at work with our colleagues, to me, it's really important that I feel that there's meaning and purpose. And I will also say it's taken on greater importance over time in my life. And so if I think about doing meaningful work, doing purposeful work, there's really three things that provide this definition for me. The first one is congruency between my personal values and company values. And at Cargill, this has been clear for me. This is part of why I've stayed at Cargill for all these years. Our values are about putting people first, doing the right thing, and reaching higher. And that's something that I can personally connect with. The second reason and definition for me behind having meaning is working for a company that has a profound purpose. And as you heard from Monica, at Cargill, we nourish the world. And that what is really noble. It's important, it's purposeful, it's more than just profits. But it's also about the how. And so our purpose statement goes on to talk about that we're going to do so in a safe, responsible, and sustainable way. And so to me, it's the combination of the what and the how that makes me able to wake up every morning and feeling very passionate, coming together with colleagues to solve complex challenges, serve our customers, knowing that it's very purposefully driven. And then the third area for me about bringing meaning and purpose together is about making an impact. And that can show up in day-to-day ways, small ways, but also in creating lasting impact and creating impact on people, on the business, communities, and society at large. And so for me, it's these three things: values, having a company purpose, as well as being able to make an impact that is very much aligned with Cargill and our company. So I'm a fan of telling stories. And so I'd love to share a story with you that I believe speaks to the heart of Cargill, our culture, our values, and what it's really like to work for this company. So a day that is forever etched in my mind is August 29th of 2021. And it was this day that a Category 4 hurricane, Hurricane Ida, hit the New Orleans area. And I can't tell you, the damage was devastating for the area. We knew it firsthand because we have 2 of our export terminals that operate in this area and hundreds of employees and their families in this community. And so at a lot of companies, the first call may have been, how are our operations? How are we going to get running? There's huge opportunities out there. What are we going to do to get going? And that was not the case at Cargill. The first questions that came out from colleagues and senior leaders were, how's your team? Have we been able to hear from everyone? Is everyone safe? What do they need? And so to me, it's our values really coming to life in that moment of crisis. But that wasn't enough. We had other colleagues, again, we talk about the vast network of Cargill, who live in the region, and they were filling up pickup trucks with food, fresh water, diapers, bare necessities, all the things that our local team needed. We provided gasoline, we were providing electricity, generators, because again, this is the heat in New Orleans in August. So how could we help people just get out of the heat to cool down and to take a moment? And so another way that Cargill showed up was that we needed to serve our customers. And being part of this global system, we were able to figure out how would we activate, the broad Cargill network to minimize disruptions and do the best that we could do to keep food and the supply chain moving. And so I share this, and it showed up in this crisis, I can tell you, in a number of other global events across the world. But it's really part of the day-to-day across Cargill. Our values guide us. Our purpose brings us all together to do meaningful work. And at the end of the day, we're making a difference and being at the forefront. And so I couldn't be more proud to work for Cargill and to be surrounded by colleagues who genuinely care for each other each and every day and in those times of crisis. So Monica, those would be the 3 ways that for me personally, having a purpose-driven career comes to the forefront.
I love. And thank you, Cheryl, for sharing the story that really brings it to life and makes it so real for all of us to hear that. So thank you. I'll open it up. April, Hope, Sakshia, either of you have any comments on this question before we move to the next?
I can speak to it for a second. And I just like Cheryl's story. I remember that, right? Like everybody does. And it was the same in Katrina too. And so I think that like, that's the legacy of Cargill, is that we always care about our people. We're going to change, the industry is going to change, but there is always going to be that backbone. Cargill's a really cool company to work for. For me, purpose has changed over the years as well. And I kind of look at it as, so when I was born in 1990, no qualms about my age. We had 5.3 billion people in the world. We have over 8 billion people in the world now, expected to have 8.5 billion by 2030. These are numbers that roll off the tongue because I think about them a lot. And I think that as Cargill, we have this incredible opportunity to create the impact that Cheryl is talking about, just by nature of our sheer size and our abilities and our connections. We're such a large force in the industry when we develop new practices, or when we support regenerative agriculture, or we support utilizing ethical supply chains, or lower and zero carbon transportation. The industry follows us. And so the cool thing about working for Cargill is that I'm not just coming into work every day to do work. I'm helping to build a better world for the kids in my family, for my friends' kids, and really for people all over the world, because everybody matters. And yeah, just kind of being at that forefront and being able to help to figure out how to more efficiently feed and fuel the world is really, really exciting. And that is where purpose comes in for me as well.
Wow, that's great. Look, I can hear it in your voice in terms of that passion of saying, look, I get to make a difference. It's not just work, I'm making a difference, and it's, going to, really fuel the future and the impact to others. So thank you, April Hope, for that. Okay, Sakshia, I'm going to turn to you. I have a question for you. So I know that you said when you were in college, at The Ohio State University, you were not familiar with Cargill, right? You didn't know about Cargill while in college. But I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about, what led you down this path. Was it fluid? Were you like, I'm after this specific industry? But give us some insight. Share with us a little bit about that.
Of course, yeah. So in college, freshman year, large career fair with a bunch of different companies, and you see a lot of different companies here and there. And I'm like, oh, Cargill has a really long line, right? So must be something good. Look into it further, and I'm going for internships at different places. And then finally, I researched Cargill my senior year. And I'm like, wow, everything that Cheryl and April Hope touched on, whether it's the sustainability, wanting to make a difference in the community, and just how many touch points they have in the agricultural space, I was like, this is the company I want to be with. So waited in that super long line in my senior year, finally got the interview and the internship. Well, not internship, apologies, associates program. So I joined as a operations management associate and honestly didn't know anything about agricultural supply chain. I hadn't worked in a grain elevator. I went to Ohio State, so I'm from the city, but I knew I wanted to be with the company. So I was like, this is my step in, and I'm going to work hard to get to where I want to be. So I started in Shine Wells, Colorado at a small interior facility. Um, we unloaded trucks from farmers and then shipped it out on rail, and small community there, but the best team ever. And I just learned there, get engaged, stay curious with the team and work with them there. And kind of in that process and working with Cargill, getting that worked out to different BGRs, um, I discovered a passion for helping people. And I think with my engineering background and where I studied at Ohio State, using my problem solving and just technical background, I was able to help the people I worked with in the plants. And so that's where I found my passion. And even though I didn't know very too much about the industry and the equipments I was working on, right, I was still able to help the team be out there with them and figure out solutions on either how to be more efficient in the job or just make it easier and safer for them. And so as my career progressed, that's kind of where I found a passion. And then also um, helping others along the way too, and providing any help and support I can get.
Love it, love it, love it. So I'm going to dig a little deeper. You mentioned BRGs, which are employee business resource groups. Just tell us just a little bit more quickly about, your engagement with them and, as you joined the company, what that meant for you.
Yes. So I first was exposed to BRGs, which is business resource groups, through the Asian Alliance Network. So Cargill has a few different BRGs. And so I joined the Asian Alliance Network because I was in a very small town, right? And so I didn't have exposure to many people. But these BRGs are able to expose you to all the different business units within Cargill and gain your network that way. And so there I was able to meet and connect with different Asians, see how they tackled their careers, what career advice that they had, and learn from them there. And then I also joined the Cargill's Women's Network, which Cheryl and April Hope are also a part of. There's one large Cargill's Women's Network, but also different chapters. And so joined those there, able to grow my network with different women leaders in the business. And that was a great opportunity for me because, right, I was a woman in a small community and didn't really have very many role models to go off of. And so being able to have the Women's Network to bounce ideas off of, explain what I was struggling with, as a leader in operations, not knowing very much, but being able to wanting to help. And so I was able to get career advice from them there with the Women's Network. And then also Cargill has a Cargill's Young Professional Network. And so then later on in my career, I joined that too, gained a mentor outside of the business. And so I was able to just be extremely vulnerable with her in that and get advice and mentorship there and just have an ear to bounce off of. I think Cargill has such a great ability to broaden your network, even if we have so many different plants across the US. You're able to still feel connected, and it sounds very cliche, but it is a family, and I think we stay connected very well that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Satya, for sharing that and bringing the color and context. I mean, making a big company small with having those communities that you can join up with and then have resources and advocates and build relationships is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, April.
Hey, Monica.
You want to tell me? Yeah.
If I could just add in, because I think, Satya talked about 3 of our business resource groups. And I'd just like to share a couple of others, because we have found over the years that we all want a sense of belonging. We want to be a part of a community, and we may not just be defined by one particular group. And so, within Cargill, we have 8, I guess now, BR business resource groups. And so we talked about the Asian Alliance. We've talked about the Women's Network, which is global. And then within our Women's Network, we also have more than 30 affiliated chapters. And so these chapters allow men and women who want to come together in IT or finance, trading and risk management, different geographies, to come together. And so we leverage best practices in kind of our global priorities, but we also appreciate the importance of local and building communities. And so we have thousands of people who are part of our Women's Network. We also have the Cargill Hispanic Latino Council. We have our Cargill Ability Network, Cargill Pride, our Veterans Military Support. And then we would be remiss, because right now our Cargill Ebony Council is in, the peak of this period, and they are busy planning for activities and celebrations right now for Black History Month. And this year we're spending time around Black women of the movement. And so again, such a great opportunity that no matter where you are within the walls of Cargill, being able to find others to create those connections and to expand the network. So sorry for jumping in. We have so many wonderful business resource groups. I wanted to give a little bit more context for some of the other ways that Cargill's developing and supporting all of our employees, and some that also target women.
Love that, Cheryl. Thank you for providing that breadth of understanding of how our employee resource groups and business resource groups really add, value to the business and to employees as well. So thank you. Okay, that's a good one. Okay, April, hopefully we're gonna talk a little bit more. We saw and we heard how passionate you were about your role, and we talk about purpose. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about, the work you do in your career journey? Anything else you would like to share about that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot I could share. I could take up the whole hour, but I won't do that. So you all know I love to talk about what I do. And there's a part of that that's like 9-year-old me would actually be so excited to hear that I get to work with trains and ships and barges and big construction equipment all day long and get to climb up on things. Like, honestly, I'm just living her dream. But my current role, and to kind of plug the BRGs here again, business resource groups, I'm actually in my role because I was working in operations. I was a member of a committee within the Cargill Women's Network. And I had actually put together a way of collecting data so that we could see the impact of our chapter of the Cargill Women's Network on the rest of the business. And this was back in 2019 when I was in Tampa, and I had kind of done it for fun. And somebody reached out to me also within the Cargill Women's Network and was like, hey, have you ever been interested in continuous improvement? And I was like, no, I don't like continuous improvement. I think lean is boring. And thankfully, Amy McClure, that's who that was. She talked me into learning a little bit more about it. And here I am, wow, almost 5 years ago, I guess 4.5 years later now. So kind of that's how I ended up in this role, is that it was in addition to the operations roles that I loved. So my current role involves, I think I mentioned this already, I work with 34 grain elevators across 10 states in the US now. And basically what I get to do is I get to build problem solving and process improvement capability. So I am not the engineer who's coming in and doing your capital project. I'm the person who's coming in and helping people to think about things in a different way. So the best part of my job right now, hands down, is the people that I get to work with. I get to work with some of the smartest people in the world, and I am 100% sure of that. And being able to help them build their capabilities and come up with solutions that I never could have come up with on my own is the biggest win. And the biggest of all the big wins is when we have some sort of a solution or some sort of a process improvement that allows us to be safer so that people are coming back home to their families in the same state that they left or better, or that allows us to do something more efficiently so we don't have to work as many hours at the plant, so that people can go home and see their kids' football game in the evening rather than loading a train for an extra 2 hours. That's something that I really, really enjoy being able to do. And also in implementing more efficient ways of running plants, we're eliminating extra runtime, we're eliminating rework, and that's making us more energy efficient. That's making us better overall for the world, right? So I absolutely, like I said, I love the grain industry. I love the people I work with even more. And I'm on a lot of really fun one-off projects right now as well. So I don't have any one day that's the same as the day before it. I am kind of working out of my home office now, but I'm on the road quite a bit, getting out to plants. So I hope that answers your question, Monica. Feel free to
It does.
follow up if need be.
You did a great job. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. We have questions coming in on the side too, but I'm gonna ask a few more questions. Maybe I'll do like one each for each of you, and then we'll jump to the audience if that's okay. So I'm gonna toss this one. As one of the largest privately held companies, you know, Cargill is involved in so many industries. We've talked about that. You've heard about grain elevators, et cetera, you know, our operations and manufacturing sites. So look, we recognize that many of these industries are pretty male dominated, historically have been, right? So I'd like to toss the question out, you know, what is, someone would just share, you know, what has been your experience working, you know, in the industry, and what advice would you have for other women who are maybe even considering or currently working in a male dominated industry? So just to call a thing, just toss the question out. Is that okay? And who wants to take that one?
I can start us off. I would say something I would have liked to known at the beginning of my career is just be authentically yourself. I think especially in a male-dominated field, you see a lot of leaders with a certain style, right? Very assertive, very direct, and have a certain face. And as a woman and an introvert myself, you know, I was like, I can probably act the part, but I don't know if that's truly myself. And so I think with the network of BRGs and seeing women leaders that are authentically themselves, I was like, okay, I can lead with myself. So just being authentic, you know, and knowing I don't know a lot and being open and vulnerable and saying, yeah, I don't know anything, but can you teach me and can you give me the guidance so then I could help you in the future? And, you know, having that confidence to just be yourself, you know, it builds relationship with the team that you have. And so then they trust you and see that you're being genuine, right? And I can lead with empathy and all of the improvements. They know I'm coming from the right place, right? And that's how Cargill leads as well. So I would say be authentically yourself, even if it may not seem like you can, and stay curious too. Yeah.
Love. Thank you, Sakshia. If you want to jump in, April Hope?
Sure. Yeah. I love what Sakshia said, and honestly, a lot of that's going to be the same thing that I would say. I can share a bit of a story. I'll be like Cheryl and tell a story. So back when I first started working in Westwego, I was really excited to learn about stevedoring, which is in the US, the way stevedoring is defined is managing the load on the vessel, right? So managing the logistics and managing working with the crew to kind of go back and forth and figure out how that load is going to work, so that there are safety concerns, there are quality concerns, there are all different types of things, right? It's a lot of fun. It was one of my favorite things that I ever did. And I was not the first, but definitely one of the first female grain stevedores that I know of in the world. And I would go on board vessels and I would get asked a lot of questions like, can a woman do this job? Like just straight up, just like, can a woman do this job? I'm like, well, it's math, so yes. Or, get asked the question like, what does your husband think of you doing this job? Or I had people who like FaceTimed their wife at home in the Philippines and were like, look, a lady foreman with me. So, I think the most important thing you can do is that there are sometimes going to be in a very male dominated industry, there are going to be people who maybe have questions, right? And if you love it and if you want to do it, give people that grace and have that understanding that just because someone has had a different experience doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want you there. It just means that they're really, really curious. And you can learn so much from some of those people, because I really did. And took the opportunity not only to be a good stevedore, but to be a great grain stevedore. And to Sakchia's point, I'm not somebody who's going to go on board a ship and yell at people and say, hey, we need to get this done, start doing what I want. But I am a really, really good negotiator. And I was able to use that talent to go on board and to say, hey, I know more about grain healing moments than a lot of other grain stevedores out there. So I can have this conversation with the chief officer and do a good job and enjoy it while I'm at it. So yeah, just kind of wanted to share that story because I thought about it. I also wanted to just say, like, I'm so proud to see Sakchia on this, because she is one of the grain stevedores who kind of came and joined after I did. And I just love seeing other women do it. So just excited to share that. All right, Cheryl, I'm sorry. I'm going to let you talk now.
No, it was great. I love what Sakchia and April Hope have talked about. And I was maybe going to take a slightly different lens and just share. And it's one of the questions that came up was about allyship. And allyship matters. It's a part of our business resource group area. And so as you heard, our Cargill Women's Network is not exclusive to just women. We open the doors and we want to be inclusive. We want to hear different perspectives. We believe we are better and that we can serve customers, solve complex, problems when we can bring the best and the brightest minds. And so it's really important for us to have, fostering a culture and an operating environment where people feel comfortable, that they are able to share, that they have a voice and a seat at the table. And so I would just share. So some of the things that we're doing is we've launched unconscious bias training over the years, and we've had thousands of employees who've gone through this. And so understanding what biases we all might bring to the table and how do we start to recognize them and build a culture around supporting each other, learning from each other if we say or do something that may be unintentionally offensive. And so unconscious bias training, we also provide development manager trainings. And so that's another area. And then through our behaviors, core to our behaviors is fostering inclusion and working together. And so to me, there's just so many ways that it's grounded about how do we each own part of our journey and trying to be relevant and effective, given different audiences and stakeholders to be successful. And we're also moving the needle organizationally to ensure that we're creating new awareness, education, and providing, culture and opportunities for safe places for people to grow and develop.
Whew, that was good. all three, the perspective, the lens. I love everything that you all shared, and hopeful that it answered actually some of the questions from the audience as well. Okay, so I'm going to shift to a question about, it's almost like, tell me about a time when, right? Maybe where you took an incredible risk, or maybe you had a career misstep or mistake, and what you learned from it. Because sometimes you get the greatest learning when you have an oops, or when you tried something really big, or something that inspired you, didn't know if you could do it. So anybody want to jump in and share? Cheryl, you want to start us with that one?
Sure, I can kick us off, Monica, and I think this may, there were some questions in the chat around career transitions, or how do you maybe make a shift in your career at various stages. And I'll share an example and a story that I went through a couple of years ago. And so, when I gave an overview, I had a bit of a zigzag career, gaining experience leading different parts of Cargill. But in the middle portion of my career, there was a period where I had been in our financial services, customer solutions space for over a decade. And some of the conversations I had said, hey, I think you're too comfortable. You've been there too long. And so some of that feedback, and it was true. But at the same time, the head of corporate risk management came open, and this was a corporate functional lead role. It had fiduciary oversight for all of Cargill's global risk activities, so trading and markets, credit counterparty, balance sheet. And I had a conversation with my manager, and he said, hey, I think you should apply. I really want to encourage you to consider this. And I will tell you, the first, moment was, boy, I'm not sure. I'm anxious about this. Like, I am comfortable. I love what I do. I feel competent. I know our customers. And so it really forced me to wrestle and to ask some deeper questions around what did I want from the next stage of my career. But also, were there different ways that I could engage people or teams? But it came from a place, a bit of doubt. This was a very technical side of the business. While I'd been around trading and risk, this was a very different area. It was fragmented. It required transformation. And so just all those creeps of insecurities came in. And so on top of that, I hadn't even interviewed in 20 years. So all of my other moves had kind of been, through knowing someone or appointment. And so that just raised another level. But this is where the power of mentors come in, and having people in your lives where you can have very vulnerable conversations, being able to ask questions, and those who will challenge you. And I had a couple of in-depth conversations with a mentor during this period. And admittedly, probably a glass of wine or two along the way. And I ultimately ended up just throwing my name in the hat. And what got me there was stop focusing on the end state. Would you get the job or not? But really thinking about going through the process. What experiences, what learnings, will you gain about yourself, about the business, seeking to understand. It was also about broadening my network. I would have an opportunity to get to know other leaders and different people in parts of Cargill that I hadn't had an opportunity to work with, as well as just saying, hey, I'm interested in making a career move. Maybe this isn't the right role or the right time, but at least sharing that expression. So if you roll the clock forward a couple of months, I did end up getting the role. And I will tell you, getting outside of my comfort zone was needed. And it was probably more confidence boosting than anything else, because I had overcome that. But I will tell you, that is when the fun really began, and the challenge of being able to put together an incredible team, a really diverse team, drive a new strategic direction, and to activate transformation. And so I am so proud of what that team accomplished in a short period of time. But I didn't go it alone. I mean, as you heard in my story, there were mentors, Cargill leaders, those who challenged me, those who supported me. I also had safe places where I could go to learn and gain some of the technical knowledge that I was missing. Plus, Cargill gave the resources to drive the change so that we could successfully implement and create this competitive advantage for Cargill. And so I will tell you, that wasn't the end of it. And so making that change connected me to where I am today. So it led me to my current role, which has been another just truly remarkable opportunity of leading Cargill's founding business, a 160-year-old business. And so to me, I think we grow the most, we develop, we can strengthen connections when we get outside of our comfort zone and we take those risks. So for those in the chat, I would just encourage you, find those places, find people in your lives who you can be vulnerable with and can help you, in these journeys and provide some support.
Love lots in that for those who really listened, intently. And Cheryl, thank you for responding to some of the questions that have been coming in as well simultaneously, and really fulfilling and responding to those. Anybody else want to share about this one? I think this is a great question because sometimes, we may be hesitant to take a risk. Anybody else experience they want to share? And if not, it's okay. You came off mute, AH.
I did. So I can share this. This is kind of, a lot of people thought this was a risk. A lot of people told me I shouldn't do this actually when I did it. And I'm really, really proud and glad that I did. I took a lateral move when I moved from Westwego to Tacoma. And I think that in some ways, yes, it was a risk, but in other ways, it was something that was one of the best things I could have done. So like I said, our Tacoma joint venture is kind of a very different business than Cargill. And I was able to see export from an entirely different light. And it was able to give me some background and some knowledge about the industry that I would not have had otherwise. The other thing is that I really loved export, and I think somebody had put a question about this in the chat. I knew that I wanted to be on more projects. I knew that over time, I was kind of going to want to build my operations experience into something that could build our plants and make them better. And I knew that by moving out to Tacoma, I was going to have the opportunity to work for an export facility that had fewer levels of management, essentially. And I was able to, even though I'd have the same job title, I was able to learn a lot more and get a completely different perspective on the business. So it was a risk in some ways, and it wasn't the traditional route that people in Cargill usually take. When they leave Westwego, they usually take a promotion, or move on to a different business. But it was something that I'm really, really proud and glad that I had the opportunity to do. And I know, speaking of mentors, I saw that John Kimmel is in this chat. He is someone who encouraged me to do it. And I am really grateful that he did and got me connected with the people out there as well. So he is also a member of the Cargill Women's Network, speaking of allies also. So
love it. Shout out. And that's such a great story because that's a real one. People experience it, and should they think about it, is that love that you shared that to give people an understanding of there's definitely benefit in learning to it. And if you're thoughtful when you think about it, so worth consideration. Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask another question. And this is about, the question is, what's the most memorable piece of career advice you've ever received? But you can answer either that, or you can say, what career advice would you give to the audience? So you can take it either way. Most memorable career advice you've received, or, based on your experience, what career advice would you give, those in the audience? And I'll ask that each of you share, speak to that one. Is that okay? You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I can start us off. Actually, this career advice came from Kim Pritchard. She actually interviewed me for that associate's position and then later became a regional manager for me. So yes, please shout out. She told me to learn more than what you're taught. So I'll just say that one more time. Learn more than what you're taught, right? So you can be taught very many things. And I'll say during my training program at the first 16 months with Cargill, right, we were given all the courses and the resources to succeed. But going a step further, right, asking the questions and then also being out with the team and putting my hands on equipment that I would probably never do, or loading a rail car, running the locomotive, right? I never thought I would do something like that, but being out there and being engaged, I would say that was a really good career advice for me. I was able to engage more out with the team and learn more about the business that way. So learn more than what you're taught, and then also continue building your brand. That is something that I'm still trying to figure out and work through, but I think that's impactful not only for others to see how you are, but how you see yourself too, right? And so as you develop in your career and you're learning, your brand changes as well, but it gives me the confidence boost knowing that I can continue growing and develop this brand for myself in Cargill.
Love. Thank you. Those are great nuggets. Wisdom. Who's next? AH.
Sure. I have a lot, but so sort of bounce off what Sakchia said again. Back when I very first started with Cargill, the regional ops lead for my region, we had just gone from what we called we had just like changed our regional structure basically. And our regional ops lead was Robert Taylor, who is still with Cargill safety capacity. But he encouraged me to join Jeeps, the Grain Elevator and Processing Society, which I'm still a member of. I actually sit on a committee for now in education, which is really fun. But the encouragement to not just go beyond what you're taught, but go beyond what Cargill has. And to dig into that world has been really incredible. I know I talked just like kind of another plug for WIMOS, Women in Maritime Operations. The things that I have learned from being a part of that organization have really led into Cargill in a really beneficial way. We basically started a nonprofit, and there are not a ton of people who have experience with starting a company who work for Cargill. And now I have that, and I'm able to bring that into my work, and I couldn't have imagined. And then, of course, there's that networking piece to it as well. You're never going to learn everything that you can possibly learn about the industry that you love from only talking to people at one company. And so taking the opportunity to learn above and beyond that has been really, really incredible. So that was a kind of interesting piece of career advice that I received and followed, and I'm very glad that I did, like 10 years later now.
Thank you both. And so I want to take a slightly different sharing. And so I have been afforded so much career advice, and I'm just grateful for mentors, sponsors, those outside of Cargill in the industry. And what I found over time is you'd often get this question: how do you navigate this career move? What advice might you have? And so I spent a couple of weeks and started really journaling and thinking about the times where I had taken on different feedback, as well as through mentoring others, where had I found that there was some consistency of sharing some themes. And so as a result of that, kind of the culmination was coming up with an acronym. And so you've heard it, we use a lot of acronyms at Cargill, and so it was probably top of mind. But this particular acronym is called DARE. DARE. And it was really what I found, and it kind of speaks to the prior question that I shared around having courage. And so ultimately, we want everyone to reach their best self, to reach their full potential. And what I found is often it may be just encouragement. And so this framework that I developed, so feeling stuck or wanting a little extra support, or how to think about things. And so quite simply, the D stands for dream. And this is really about dreaming big, believing in yourself, setting your sights high. And oftentimes this can be even bigger than what you think is possible. So the D for dream. A standing for authentic. And you heard it in some of the responses. Authenticity matters. At the heart of this, to be your best, You need to take the masks off. You need to be able to feel valued, to feel heard. And so, and often there's some vulnerability in that. So authenticity. The letter R stands for results and being results oriented. And so networking matters, building connections matter, but I also encourage people that, achievement and accomplishments, outcomes matter too. And then last for E, two sides to this. One, being empowered, owning your career, owning the decisions, owning the journey. But the duality or the other side of the E is about paying it forward. And I think we have such an opportunity, whether it's being mentors, mentees, supporting one another, for me, that element of empowerment for paying it forward also helps. So I guess if there was anything I was going to lead with is getting outside of our comfort zones, and really, I would dare you to have the courage of really challenging yourself, thinking about your journey, the possibilities that are out there, and most importantly, the heart of this conversation, ensuring that you're feeling like you're finding a deeper purpose and meaning to what you do in the 8 to 5.
Love all of those. And I think the audience, you have been dared, if that's a word, right, to really consider what you've heard today. And, I just like to, start to close us out. You have heard from 3 incredible leaders, right? And you see, they mentioned authenticity. You see it before you, inspiring. They've found their passion. They've, talked about, how do you give grace, in an industry, right? As you may be one of the few. And so when you think about really just exploring and considering, career. You've heard about Cargill's culture. They've talked about advocates, managers. They've dropped some names and given some shout outs to those who have actually impacted them along the way. And so that's the culture that we have here at Cargill. And as you consider it, and is it a place, 27 years, 10 years, 5 years? So it runs the gamut. And how they approached and came to Cargill, how it came to be, it varied. But I think you can hear from each and every one of them the passion they feel, why they are here at Cargill and what it means for them, that they truly. Now, you all have paid it forward, the 3 of you. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being so authentic, for your willingness to share your experiences. It means a lot, and for the audience. So a few things I'll have to say. Now, we touched on the question, so just want to make sure everyone, the team was incredible in terms of, really pulling those into their answers as we saw them coming in. So I will just remind, today's event was recorded, and there will be more resources about Cargill as well. Be sure to check out our profile and jobs on Fairy God Boss. I think we're also dropping the careers link into the chat as well for you all to see. So make sure you check that out. We'd love to hear your feedback to help us to continue to improve, and Fairy God Boss as well. So please head to the Typeform tab to the right side of your screen to make sure you share your thoughts via the survey. And with that, I think I will close us out. And so thanks everyone for your time, your attention, for joining and learning more about Cargill, our culture, and our wonderful talent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.